yet, but I wanted to just hop right into this because when I watch replays of things, I'm always just trying to fast forward until the content starts. So I'm just going to start right off with our homeschool Q&A. I received a bunch of questions in on my community post, and so I'm going to tackle those first, and then I will take questions from the chat, which, you know what, I should grab my computer before I do that, but I won't leave just yet. I'll wait a second and I will get my computer and look for those questions in the chat after I answer the questions that were submitted to me. So I see some people are coming in. I'm going to wait to give announcements or some information until I see more people here. So I'm just going to start off letting you know a couple things about the description box down below. In the description box, once this video posts to YouTube, so I don't have it there now. I don't know why, but it wouldn't let me put it there. A lot of you have been asking me about supporting the channel, supporting me, and you don't buy the curriculum that I review here. And that's okay. I'm glad that you're still able to find helpful information from this channel, even though you don't purchase that curriculum. But some of you have mentioned wanting to support the channel in some way. In a live video, in the chat box, you are able to donate, or what, I don't know what it's called, but you're able to do that if that's something that you want to do. Also, in the description box, when this posts to YouTube, there will be links of other ways, other things that I do as kind of a means to support this homeschooling adventure and not be a working parent. I'm doing a couple other things too with affiliate links that aren't homeschool related. So if you're interested in those, you can check for that in the description box once this video posts to YouTube. So that's just kind of something at the beginning here before we get started. Now I have a couple pages here of questions that were submitted, but if you have a question, please just leave that in the chat box and I will get to that once I get through these questions. If you submitted a question to me afternoon today, then I didn't get it for this because I got all of these printed off and started gathering my thoughts before then. So if you have submitted something after that time, please come back to the next Q&A, which will probably not be next week, but the week after. Probably every other week I'll do one of these until we kind of get into midsummer. So if I didn't get your question today, I'll get it in the next one, okay? So that's why this is called part one, because I'll probably have a couple of these. So let's start off with the first question, and please go ahead and like this stream so that other homeschool moms can find it. Feel free to even share it out if you have some new to homeschool mamas that you think would like to hear this info. So the first question I got was about BJU English and learning language arts through literature. Now I have done complete reviews on these things. You can definitely check out my channel for those. I've done complete flip throughs. Some of these videos are like a half an hour long where I really show you the nitty gritty. And the question was, it sounds like your teaching style is more related to LADL, which is learning language arts through literature, that's what I call it. But I know you use a lot of BJU products. Which would you consider to be the more complete curriculum? And why would you choose one over the other? So first of all, I would say that BJU Press English is just that it's writing and grammar. It doesn't have the other parts of language arts like spelling, writing, reading, all of that. It doesn't have those other components to it. So in that sense, if you're talking about which one is a more complete language arts program, that would be LADL for sure. But if you're talking about which one is more complete for what it is, I think that BJU is definitely thorough enough for what it's intended to cover. They have separate programs for reading and spelling, and they just do writing and grammar in their English course. And for what it covers, I personally feel that it's more than what they need. I feel like actually some of the grammar concepts in their elementary years are way more than kids need for elementary, but we always have the freedom to skip over that, don't we? My teaching style, as the question asker mentioned, is definitely more suited towards LADL, towards learning language arts through literature. But I didn't purchase it because my son doesn't learn best that way. And that's where I've had to come as a homeschool parent and say, this is beautiful, I love it, this is how I would want to learn, this is how I would want to teach, but it's not working for my student, it's not working for my child, so I need to pick something else. And so that's actually why we use more BJU Press, even though I personally prefer as a teacher, and if I was learning it as a learner, I prefer the Ladle method. I think BJU Press is actually technically more rigorous. The question asker was wondering about rigor. I think that it's more technically rigorous as far as teaching terminology and kind of the nitty-gritty of certain grammar concepts, but I think that Ladle seems to be deeper somehow. It really allows kids to form like what Charlotte Mason calls relationships with their learning, and provides a more holistic approach to language arts. So that's kind of what I would say for that answer. It's kind of a long one. It's one of my longest answers, so we got that out of the way, and I'll get to the quicker ones, and they'll go a little faster now. Next question: how did you entertain your youngest before she was the school age and you were able to work with her in her own subjects? Well, when my daughter was very young, she sat on my lap for a lot of the read aloud time, and she was completely happy there. Sometimes I give her some sort of like a chew or noise toy or whatever, something that she could just play with. Those little rag toys, those sort of things. She would just sit on my lap as I read history, or sit on my lap during science or Bible time, whatever. And she was completely happy there. Sometimes I'd put her at my feet with a toy right in front of me on the couch. So I never really sectioned her off in a separate area by herself or something like that, or not by herself, but like I never expected her to be doing something else. I have really involved her from the beginning in what we were doing. Now, as she got old enough and could follow directions and things like that, I would actually use her as a teacher assistant or teacher visual. And there were many times where I would use her as the object lesson, or I would have her wear something that was the object lesson. Or when my son was doing kind of an oral review question and answer, I would say, okay, send your answer through the carrier pigeon. And that was my daughter. And so, he would tell her the answer and she would run it over to me, and then I would tell her yes or no, that's correct. And it was just kind of a fun little thing that we did when my daughter was like the toddler, early preschooler age, before she was really doing her own thing in school. And that worked out wonderfully. My kids both loved it, and it made for some fun memories for us. Okay, next question I got in. And again, leave your questions in the chat box if you have some. I'm not seeing chat right now because I have to, I'm gonna grab my computer so I can see that. Hang on, don't anybody leave. Okay, so I will check the chat here because I guess since it's a live, technically I could get some unpleasant comments going on here, so I probably need to, after every question, just look over here at the chat box and see if any of that business is going on. So if you're just coming in, I'm taking the questions that I received on my community tab first. There were 9 of them, or 10 of them actually, and then I will come over here to the chat box and see what's going on. So let me just look. Actually, it doesn't look like I have any chats as yet, so that's good. So no questions have come in, or no rude comments from trolly people. Okay, so I was on question 3. I'm between 2 history curriculum. That's all of us, right? Yes, a lot of us are between choices. I'm in between history curriculum for my soon-to-be 3rd grader and my soon-to-be kindergartner. How do you decide without buying both of them? I'm between Knotgrass and History Quest. So it's hard for me to answer this for 2 main reasons. Number 1, I don't know what courses you're looking at in those 2 programs, because I actually would have a different recommendation depending on which course you were looking at. But also, I don't know what are kind of your deciding criteria. So I'm just going to tell you how I would decide between these 2. I usually, when I get down to 2 curriculum, they're incredibly similar. And I actually don't think that Knotgrass and History Quest are similar at all. I really don't. I think they're completely different. One is full color, written in a storybook form. One is written from a biblical worldview. One is not. So that kind of it makes it a little challenging for me to give you guidance on how to select between those particular curricula. But Here's how I get to a decision for history. When I'm looking at history and I get down to just a couple, I say, first of all, are both of them in my budget? Because when I'm initially looking for curriculum, I don't look at cost. I know that sounds weird knowing how frugal I am, but I just want to know what's out there before I start looking at price. I don't look at price first. I look at the content of the material first, and then I bring it down and say, can we afford it? Are there lots of extra pieces, parts to buy? Because you know how I feel about those. Which would be easiest to combine my kids? Which costs me less time? And which would provide the best memories? This is probably the number one, like trumps everything else. Which would provide the best memories for me and my kids? And that's what I'm considering history. I know math and spelling may not give you good memories, but history, when you're studying the story of God's work through the ages, that should give you some great memories, some great hands-on projects to do that you can save as mementos. And so that's definitely a criteria when I'm deciding between two of them. All right, next question. Did you figure out your math curriculum? Have you tried Ray's Arithmetic or Strayer Upton? I hope I said that right. No, I have not figured out math for the fall as yet. I did come to a conclusion for math for the rest of this year, but I have not made a final decision on the curriculum for fall yet. So stay tuned. I haven't looked at those two though, so maybe that's something I will do here in the next little bit. All right, next question. How did you get your littles to remain engaged with good attitudes beyond math and handwriting? So we've heard many people say that just focus on math and phonics during those early days, and don't worry about the rest. And I would totally echo that advice. So for this mama, I would say, you know what? I'm not really looking for them to stay much engaged after those things are done. So I would just let them go play. And as they want to join us, my older son and I, as we do other subjects, that's great. But if they don't, that's fine too. And so that's kind of the first little part of my answer, but I will give you some practical helps in case that's a goal and an expectation in your home that they sit in on those other things. I would probably allow my daughter to move, and I'm just considering my daughter because I don't know the ages of this mama when she was asking this, but my daughter's 5, and so I would allow her to definitely move around, not sit still for other subjects beyond handwriting and phonics. So if you have a certain set of subjects that you expect your child to sit still for, then once they get those done, have that be first of the day where they're nice and fresh. And then once that's done, if you want to have them engaged in what you're doing, let them do something else at the same time, like standing up and jumping up and down, or sitting on a bouncy ball as a seat instead of a chair, or doing their lesson on the floor. I don't think that having them sit the whole time will increase engagement necessarily. It's never worked here. It hasn't worked for a lot of the classroom settings that I've been part of as a teacher in other ministries. And so once you kind of have to have like a time of focus that everyone's expected to sit still for. In our house, that's Bible snuggles and science. And once that's over, then you kind of have to let up a little bit, in my opinion. You kind of have to let them move around and get the wiggles out. And believe it or not, a kid that's bouncing up and down while they're doing something is actually retaining more than you think. So don't think that sitting still and looking ahead is necessarily engaged in learning, because it often isn't for those little ages. All right, so as you're coming in, I am halfway through the submitted questions. If there are more questions that you would like answered that you don't hear in this question and answer time, please leave those down in the chat box. You can I have it up here on my computer, so I'm looking over here after each question to see if there are more questions coming in, and I will answer those. Anything from choosing homeschool curriculum to home management while homeschooling, and scheduling and planning out your homeschool year. I mean, anything you want to ask, go ahead and ask, and I will do my best to answer. All right, so next up on the submitted questions, how long does it generally take you to teach a BJU Press math lesson? Now, I did a video, and I suggest you go to my BJU playlist and check this out, but I actually teach math differently than the publisher recommends, and I don't use the teacher guide and all of that. So I am going to give you kind of a two-part answer here, okay? So first, the way I do it, and then second, the way it's written, okay? So the way I do it, I teach for no more than 10 minutes. It's often less than that. And I just kind of do the method that I explain in that video that I've already put up on my channel about how I teach math. I'll just summarize it here real quick. I use the front side of the page as my teaching visual, and I do several examples from that front page. The back side of a BGU Press math page is exactly the same as the front, with the addition of some review problems as well. So I'm able to do a sample problem for everything my son is going to do on his independent practice on the back, which is great. So I use that as my teaching visual. I use the student handbook, which is in the back of the student work text, and there's a lot of teaching tips back there. And I use the after school help videos that BJU produces, as well as some math antics videos. This whole combination of things, all of this has worked out beautifully for us. We have not missed the teacher guide one bit. I do have a math strong student though, and I am strong in math. That's my strong suit in school. So keep that in mind. If you have a math struggling student or you yourself struggle, you may benefit from the teacher guide. But I will say that if you use the teacher guide, you're going to have more like a 25-minute lesson plus the work text by the time you do everything that's in that teacher guide. A good way to test this is to look at the BGU Press distance learning video, the sample online for the grade that you're considering. You can see the math review, how long that takes. You can see how long the lesson content takes, and you can see how long the review and the work text takes as well. That will show you everything that basically that's in the printed teacher guide for the lesson. And I did a sample with my son today. It just so happens, praise God, this was such great timing. The lesson my son was on today in his math was the sample video that was on YouTube for BGU Press. I mean, seriously, that was like so unplanned, but it worked out that way. So we actually did math on video today, and it was a solid 25 minutes, and I actually turned it off at the 13-minute mark because he's like, Mom, I'm ready to do my work text. Can I just do my work text? I said, absolutely. So we didn't even watch the last 12 minutes of the video. So that's the kind of stuff that's in the teacher guide. It's lots of examples, lots of application. And if you aren't a real mathy person or your student isn't a real mathy person, that might be great for you. But for us, one example, and I see he's got it, and we move on. And so my BJU Press math lessons, less than 10 minutes. As scheduled in the teacher guide, 25 minutes or more. So keep that in mind. Okay, 3 more questions that came in, and I do see I'm just getting some comments, no questions as yet. If you have a question, anything related to homeschool or home and family while you're homeschooling or scheduling, planning, all of that sort of thing, you can feel free to leave that in the chat box and I will get to it in just a minute. I'm going to answer these last 3, and then if there's no more there, I'll just wrap this up. All right, I'm thinking of getting the online BGU Press for Language Arts for my soon-to-be 6th and 4th grader. How has that worked out for you? Well, we absolutely love distance learning from BGU Press. I wish it wasn't so stinking expensive. I probably would use it for more things because we absolutely love it. It is so well done. It is worth every penny. I by no means think it is overpriced. It is definitely worth every penny. We just can't pay all those pennies. We don't have that many pennies. So I'm choosing which ones we use. And this year, Language Arts was one of them. It has worked out beautifully. My son has said multiple times, this is his favorite way to learn writing. Please keep getting me this. So I'm trying to make it work in the budget to get it again for next year, but it's just really expensive. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But the writing lessons, working great. The grammar lessons, I would say, are a bit much. I think they're actually a little too detailed for this grade level. We're in 4th grade. I think that some of the things we're teaching, I didn't really get till late middle school. We focused so hard in elementary on punctuation, capitalization, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. That's it. And I wish that's what they would do, because my son is not strong in punctuation or capitalization, and they don't even touch on it in 4th grade at all. It's like not even mentioned. They're doing direct objects and tenses of verbs, and they're into all these other things that are grammar, and it's good to teach those things, I suppose, but I feel like they move on from what is the basics of what elementary students should learn. I feel like they move on from that too quickly. So I've actually, even though I would probably do a completely thorough program, on the grammar side, I'm supplementing with editor-in-chief to give him more practice with punctuation and capitalization, because I feel like they pretty much aren't doing that. So, and we're like in the last third of the book. So, but the writing chapters are our absolute favorite way to do writing. So my son has picked that. He said that's his favorite. All right, I do see some things coming in. I'm looking for questions here. Okay, so I will get to those. I have 2 more questions that came in before the live, so I will get to those in the chat box as soon as I answer them. All right, last 2 questions that came in. If I was going to incorporate one thing from Memorial Press into next year's homeschool schedule, what would you recommend it be? My son will be 7. Thanks. So if you have followed me here, you know I gush over Memorial Press in the early years. I think they have some tremendous things, and I don't know if this subscriber was saying in addition to the core, like is she using a core grade level from Memorial Press, or is she just not buying anything, like buying something totally separate and just wanting to bring in some separate Memorial Press items? So I really don't know how to answer this, because if you're using a core from Memorial Press, I would say you don't need to add anything at all. But if you're using other curriculum and you just want to add in some Memorial Press things, I do have a few thoughts. So if someone, I'll answer it this way first, and then I'll give us part B to my answer. If someone told me that I could only buy one thing out of the Memorial Press catalog, I bet, I want to see how well some of you know me here. If you put in the chat box, what do you think I would say? If I could pick one thing from Memorial Press to buy for a 7-year-old, a rising probably 1st or 2nd grade student, what would it be? What do you think I would say? I'm going to give you a minute to put your answer in there, and I'll go on to part B of my question. So I will tell you what the one thing is I would buy if I was buying one thing. But I will tell you, if you're looking for something more in the enrichment area, that's just kind of like an add-on, some good suggestions would be their music enrichment for K-2. It covers 3 years of enrichment lessons. It's a pretty thin book, but there is so much good content in there that you can spread it out even more than those 3 years. I would also highly suggest their recitation. Like, it's $5 or $6, I think, to print it off. And my son loved that. My daughter loves it. They call it fast facts or trivia, and they love that too. So I would definitely add those 2 things as a possible enrichment item. But okay, nobody guessed, or at least there's a delay. I know there's a delay a lot of times with this. So I will just tell you, if somebody told me that what you had to pick one thing out of the Memorial Press catalog, hands down, every day, it would be their literature. Very good. Oh, the memory book? Okay, well, that's good too. But I would pick their literature. Their literature, both read alouds, the things that I'm reading to my student. Picture books, there you go. Simply Athelia, she got it. Their books. I would get their read aloud books, and the things that the students read too. I would definitely get those as well. So I guess I would just say literature. If it was, whether it was me reading to my student or my student reading their independent reading, I would get that hands down every day, all day. So that's that. I could talk more about it, but I will just leave it there. And by the way, if you aren't familiar with any of the companies that I'm mentioning here, if they're new to you, once this posts to YouTube, and it's on my channel, there will be links to all this in the description box. I can't edit the description box until this is posted live, so, or posted to my channel. So once this live is ended, you won't be able to view this until it posts to my channel, and I'm somewhere today with not good internet, so it probably won't post until later this evening or tomorrow, but you can come back and look at the description box, and I'll have links to all of these curriculum companies that I'm mentioning here in case you're coming here and have never heard of them. All right, last question that came in, and then I will head to the chat box. How do you handle a child who is afraid of making mistakes? I have one of these children, my little perfectionist, and he has shed so many tears over his work because he is wanting to get 100% on everything. This particular student that the mama was asking about is a kindergartner, and that's kind of easier to handle than like a 5th or 6th grader, in my opinion, because with a kindergartner, there's very little that child should be doing alone, in my opinion. The idea of independent work for a kindergarten student is kind of like an oxymoron, I guess. I don't know, that might be a little harsh way to put it, but there shouldn't really be too much that they're doing independently, in my opinion. You should be right there sitting with them. Their lessons are often short, and you can offer that reassurance and that guidance with them. So the way that I would handle that is, number one, to just be there the entire time they're doing their lesson. Now, I know that could be tricky if you have 5 other students that you're working with, but if you could carve out 20 minutes a day, you probably could get through your kindergartner's lessons with them, maybe 30 minutes a day to get through their lessons with them and be there the whole time they're doing it. One thing that I learned from Memorial Press teacher guides was that in their method, they actually don't have the children write down answers in their book. They have the teacher do everything orally with the student, and then the teacher writes down the answer on the whiteboard, and the student simply copies it. So that would be a definite thing that I would actually have, that I would suggest that you do, is have your student copy your answers. So, you know, if it's, you know, a math question, you know, what's 2 plus 1? And, you know, you talk about it, what is 2 plus 1 more? And you're talking about it with your student. What do you think? 3, and then you write it on the board. Okay, that's it. Copy that into your book. Or what is the letter that makes, you know, this sound? Or how would you spell this? Or whatever it is. You're writing the answer down on the whiteboard. They're just copying it. So that's how I would recommend dealing with a perfectionist at that age, at that kindergarten age. All right, so let's take a look back up here. I do have a couple questions. Thank you for those of you who have commented just to say hello or that you're excited to watch this. I love seeing who comes to these. Kelly said that she is using the literature guides for the first time, and she's actually starting a level lower. That's actually what I do too, Kelly. I actually only do 1, maybe 2 of the Memorial Press literature guides for that grade level during that grade. Most of the literature guides that I use are for the grade below, and that's mainly because I don't want my child to hate reading. And if I pick something that's at his ceiling of reading level, that kind of makes it, and it's something I've picked, not something he's picked. That kind of makes it, you know, unpleasant for him. He doesn't really like that. And so I'm asking them to use their brains for comprehension questions and reading fluency and learning new vocabulary and learning all of these new things, all these new skills when dealing with literature. So I bump the level down a little bit, and I actually buy a grade lower in Memorial Press literature guides as well. I do usually get 1 or 2 that we use at the very end of the year that's on level. Okay, a question. How do you feel about using pay teachers literature guides for independent reading? I've never bought one. I'm sure there's some great content there. I've actually not used much from teachers pay teachers. I've just always found something that I really love in the traditional homeschool market, and I've really never gone over there. So I really don't have an opinion on those, but I do know a lot of moms that use them. You probably could find some really good reviews on YouTube if you search those. Okay, I've heard that Rod & Staff English is great with grammar. Have you used it? I almost bought it this year. I almost did. It was really close. I almost got it, and the main reason I did not get it is because A, my son struggles with grammar. And he has told me repeatedly, like over and over and over again, Mom, I don't care what curriculum you get me, I just want it to be colorful and fun. Colorful and fun. And I don't care what it is. And that's why he loved master books. That's, he really loved using that, but that ended up not being a fit, more so for the layout of the book and the order of the lessons. But I just couldn't bring myself to buy Rod and Staff when the only thing he asked for was color and fun, because Rod and Staff is not colorful and fun at all. So I couldn't bring myself to purchase that one when that was really the only thing he asked me. So yes, I know it's great with grammar, and I actually thought about getting it and like just using it as a verbal example type thing that I could do with him before he does his BG Press lessons, but yeah, we haven't done that. So, okay, so yes, thank you for that. Rod and Staff is great, but not colorful. All right, and then some of you were guessing what my favorite thing would be. The craft book, yes, the craft book. Now, that's kind of a partially right answer. Who said that? Jamie, because the craft book is based on their read aloud. So that's definitely a right answer. You could get the craft book, and then you'd have their read aloud list and crafts. So maybe that's the thing to get. Maybe that's the one thing to get from their catalog. I'm glad I don't have to pick one because I love so many things from their catalog. All right, so those are all the questions from the chat box. Again, if you have something that you want to ask that I didn't cover, please leave that here. On the replay, I will come back and get questions from this video that came in after the live it was over, and I'll add those to my next question and answer. I am going to be filming right after this. I am going to be filming the Master Books art curriculum flip through and tips and tricks and how I plan to use it, sort of thing. I am going to be filming that, so look for that later this week. I am also, drum roll please, I'm also going to be filming the curriculum reveal for kindergarten. Now I know it's not the one a lot of you want to see, or not kindergarten, first grade. For first grade. I know it's not the one a lot of you want to see. A lot of you want to see my rising fifth graders curriculum, but I'm just not done picking it all yet. So, okay, we have some weirdness here. We're just gonna, excuse me, I'm gonna get rid of the weirdness here. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, so yes, so those are things that I'm going to be filming this week. So Master Books art curriculum and my first graders curriculum picks. So, oh good, I'm glad, Jenna. Jenna is going to get myself and others from Memorial Press. Did you see Sunlight's new 5th grade readers? No! Oh, don't tell me something new. Because I just, actually in the mail yesterday, I got 2 things I'm going to use for my son's reading. Oh dear. I gotta go look as soon as this is over. I did not see it. Okay, well, I don't know what this person is doing here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. I will do another live when I get more questions, probably again, not next week, but the week after, and I will answer more of your questions, take more live questions, and we'll go from there. Okay, so let me know what you want me to talk about next time. You can leave that here if you're watching on replay, and I will come here and get those questions for you. I hope you have a great homeschool week. Apparently now I have to go look at Sunlight's 5th grade readers because I'm curious what's there, and maybe they'll end up in my curriculum review. I have no idea when I'm going to be ready to show that to you guys, because I don't know when I'm going to feel comfortable actually buying language arts and math for my son, because I keep waffling back and forth on what to do there. So it might be summer, and I'm never that late. I usually have everything by February to show you. So this is new for me to not be done at this late in the game, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, thank you so much for tuning in, those of you that watched the live. If you're watching on replay, I hope this was helpful for you, and some of the questions that others asked met some of your needs as well. Please go ahead and like this video if you like the live Q&A style of things, and I will catch you in an upcoming video. Bye bye, guys.